Hello, my name is NIO and I'm a singer-songwriter here based in Taipei.
对其他人所说的话，对我说的是一样的吗？似乎成了两个人，不再是我认识的人。不愿再跟你背台词，站在你安排好的位置，演完这场戏前宁可先死。
So my name is NIO, N-I-O. It's sort of a play on the English prefix NEO, N-E-O, which obviously means new or novel. And we put it in front of words like neoclassicism and neo-soul. And I think it sort of represents sort of like me reinventing or recreating or evolving. And I hope that's something that my music and me personally can embody. Growing up as like a halfie and being half British, I think has had like a huge, obviously like cultural impact on my upbringing. You know, you need to learn how to come to terms with identities from really different parts of the world. That not only in terms of like my upbringing personally has had a huge impact on me, but also musically. I think I've just generally traveled a lot and have listened to music from around the world. And I think being, growing up as a mixed race or as like a biracial person, you start to learn there are a lot of borders that you don't necessarily fit in, and there are a lot of boxes that you don't necessarily fit in. And the world likes to put things into boxes because it's easy to organize and it's easy to understand. But one of my biggest takeaways is that I don't think you can put any of us into a box, and I've come to terms with that part of my identity quite early on in life. I don't fit into generic or stereotypical boxes, so hopefully it has come through in my music. I think my music style actually started developing since quite a young age, maybe 13 or 14. Well, I started playing piano since I was 5, so I went through the whole sort of classical repertoire and the things that children often go through when put through classical training. But I first started actually getting into music that I was interested in and cultivating my own musical tastes when I started downloading sheet music from the Final Fantasy game series, because I really admire the work of the composers for Final Fantasy. And so I wanted to play that on the piano, and I think the harmony and the melody from those original soundtracks really helped shape how I use harmony and melody today, in addition to obviously further musical genres that I encountered growing up, such as I listened to a lot of pop punk in my later teen years. I started to listen to more soul and jazz and funk as I approached early adulthood, and so on. As the internet has become more and more accessible, and you can just access any sort of music and any type of genre now. So I think it's quite limitless, but it did start off with video game music. I think that dance music and electronic music have always been like a huge part of my life, because and actually not many people know this about me, but I was actually a dancer for 8 years, and I started dancing when I was 11. I danced hip-hop and freestyle, so a lot of the dance styles that came out of like East Coast US in the hip-hop era. And so like music with a beat has always meant something very dear to my heart, and I think those were the first times when I was dancing that I really felt the music inside my body, and that is something that's just very, very magical to me, and I think that I want my music to bring that out in people. I play video games, obviously. That's how I got into contact with Final Fantasy in the first place as a kid, and I still play Final Fantasy to this day. Aside from gaming, I also I have a motorbike, so it's really nice to ride around the island and to get out of the city and to go into the countryside. It's quite a nice contrast that I like to have, sort of staying in and playing games versus going out into the countryside. And apart from that, I also like to go drinking with friends, and I like party culture, so I like going to nightclubs or raves. I think it's a lot of fun, and it's a great way to meet also DJs and other musicians.
再生永远比不完。
My first album, the reason why I named it Horizon was because I think it's sort of a visual representation or how I see the mentality or the idea of living in the present. Looking towards your future, but also letting your past sort of fade away. I think the horizon is a very good visual representation of what is the now and what is the present. So actually in my album cover, it's actually a depiction of that, and it's me standing literally on the horizon. And a lot of this album is about being grounded in the present and letting your past fade away in due time and letting your future come towards you in due time. On my album I have a total of 5 featuring artists, and some people have come and told me that that's a lot, but I've sort of wondered to myself, you know, is that a lot, especially for a debut album? Like, to have so many other artists featuring on the album, do you lose a sense of self or a sense of like identity, because it is after all my album? But it's been an absolute pleasure working with Hush, who is on my song Person. You know, we have a lot of similar experiences actually, just in life in general, and he's been such a joy to work with. I met him in 2017. He was touring in the UK, and my band at the time, we did a warm-up for his show. So, you know, destiny has been kind, and it's been great meeting him and writing with him. Amazing singer-songwriter here in Taiwan. And then there is Roxy, who's the lead singer of a band called Johnny, who I'm absolutely crazy about them, and I was a fan of theirs for years now. I stalked her on Instagram and managed to get in contact with her and wrote with her. It was a blast because she comes from the sort of like indie band background, which in a way I come from as well. So we have a sort of common language in that sense, and she features on my song Shut It Down, which is a very angsty, it almost has a bit of like a punk element to it. Like I think the sentiment is it's very punk, but the music style is electronic, it's drum and bass, and it's a really exciting song. And I'm featuring Amui and Yuzi, 2 beautiful girls that I met actually just this year on Guangyu's radio show. That was actually the first time I met them, was actually on the radio show, and we performed Best Part by Daniel Caesar and her with no rehearsal, and it was a fantastic experience. I feel we really clicked perfectly, and we were just like, we need to write a song together, you know. We love to soul and R&B influences and doing a lot of vocal runs, you know, a lot of that kind of stuff. It's rare that you find people who sing like that you can really work well together with, because everyone's usually kind of singing over each other. But writing I Got You Baby with Amui and Yuzi was also a very unique experience and very, very smooth, and has ended up being just a really feel-good song, which is exactly what we wanted to embody with that song. And the last artist I'm working with on this album has been Evan Yo. I worked on the song Sundown, 日落 with him, and it was such a joy because I think of all the artists I work with, he was definitely the most eager in the writing process, and I never had to ask him to send any files to me or to, you know, edit this or edit that. He was very on top of things and very just enthusiastic about the whole creative process. It was very humbling for me because he is an artist who debuted when he was 19. So he released his first album when he was 19. And for somebody who has that much experience and has had that much success in his career, to just be so honest and genuine and just level-headed with someone like me who's releasing their debut album just this year at 25. You know, it's not a competition, but I mean, there are some times where, you know, people can get big-headed, or he never acted that way around me, and he just talks to me like his friend, and it's just been an absolute pleasure to work with, and it's just a very humbling experience for me. Yeah, so just working with so many different artists has been a joy on this album, and every single one of them is a good friend of mine. That's a pleasure for me to be able to say, is that none of this was sort of done just for the music. Actually, we're all really good friends outside of music. We hang out, we go drinking, they come to my house, we play games together, you know, it's just, music brings people together, you know. So the last thing I want to say to everybody is that my debut album, Horizon, is finally out on all streaming platforms. You can stream it on Apple Music, on Spotify, or whatever other streaming platform you use. You can follow me if you're interested on Instagram or Facebook under NIO Fletcher, N-I-O Fletcher, or you can just search NIO, see if I pop up. And last but not least, buy yourself a pair of kick-ass speakers and play this album full volume, lose your inhibitions, and dance your socks off. Bye.
却无法找到任何踪迹让我珍惜你，记住你像街头。